Hey guys, tonight we're going to dim the lights and drift back in time to an era that on the surface seems all prim and proper, yet held some of the most startling and frankly terrifying beauty secrets you could ever imagine. Imagine yourself not just strolling down a gas-lit London street, but living there, feeling the tight laces of your corset, hearing the faint clatter of a handsome cab outside your window. You glance in the mirror not to see your reflection, but to assess your complexion, your eyes, your hair, through a lens completely alien to our own. You probably won't survive this, but hey, it's just for one night. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as always, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself in a world where the quest for beauty wasn't just about looking good, it was about projecting social status, health, and moral uprightness. A pale complexion, for instance, wasn't just a trend. It was a defiant statement against the sun-kissed skin of laborers. You see, if you were tan, it meant you worked outdoors, which meant you were likely from the lower classes. A porcelain white face, often veined with delicate blue, screamed leisure wealth, and a life lived indoors away from the harsh elements. This wasn't just about makeup, it was a deeply ingrained social language. You might be surprised to learn that many of the beauty standards we consider modern, the obsession with clear skin, bright eyes, and a slender figure, were absolutely paramount in the Victorian era, but the methods to achieve them, oh, they were a wild ride. Consider the prevailing wisdom of the time. Mainstream historical facts tell us that Victorian women, especially those of means, adhered to incredibly strict beauty regimens, often starting from a young age. There was immense societal pressure to present a flawless appearance, even if that flawlessness came at a significant personal cost. You're walking a tightrope between aspiration and self-destruction, completely unaware of the long-term consequences of your daily rituals. It's like, you know how we all put on sunscreen now without a second thought? Back then, you'd apply something to your face thinking it's protecting you, but it's probably doing the exact opposite. Historians still argue whether the widespread ill health of the era was primarily due to poor sanitation and nutrition, or if the beauty routines themselves played a much larger insidious role than previously acknowledged. It's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, isn't it? Did the beauty standards cause the poor health, or were they just symptomatic of a broader disregard for public health? You'd never guess, for example, that one quirky tidbit of the era was the belief that applying the raw fat of a badger could cure wrinkles. Yes, a badger. You'd probably find yourself eyeing every badger you saw with a mix of fear and desperate hope. Wouldn't you imagine trying to explain that to your modern dermatologist? So I've been using badger fat. Is that good for my pores? The look on their face would be priceless. And this, my friends, is just the beginning of the rabbit hole we're diving into tonight. As you delve deeper into the Victorian pursuit of beauty, you quickly realize that the pale complexion wasn't merely a status symbol, it was an obsession that led to truly alarming practices. You hear whispers of a secret, a shortcut to that coveted luminous pallor, and soon you find yourself in a dimly lit apothecary acquiring tiny, innocent-looking wafers. These aren't digestive aids or breath fresheners, oh no. These are arsenic wafers, and you're about to ingest them day after day for that deathly white glow. The idea is that a minute controlled dose of arsenic will supposedly clear your skin, making it unnaturally fair and translucent. You're convinced by the persuasive advertisements, often featuring women with almost ghostly complexions, that this is the path to true beauty. Never mind the unsettling dryness in your throat or the faint metallic taste that lingers after each wafer. The effects are subtle at first. Your skin does seem clearer, perhaps even a bit more ethereal, almost as if light passes through it rather than reflects off it. You notice the envious glances, the compliments on your delicate appearance. But beneath this fragile veneer, a sinister process is unfolding. Arsenic, a potent poison, begins its slow, insidious work. You might experience stomach cramps, hair loss, or even strange numbness in your fingers and toes, dismissing them as minor ailments, or perhaps just the price of beauty. Mainstream historical facts confirm that arsenic consumption for cosmetic purposes was disturbingly common in the 19th century, particularly among women of the upper classes who could afford such remedies. Advertisements for these products openly touted their skin lightening and complexion improving qualities, conveniently omitting the rather significant detail that you were essentially poisoning yourself slowly and painfully. It's like buying a miracle cream today that promises eternal youth, but secretly it's just acid slowly dissolving your face. You'd think someone would have caught on, right? But the lure of societal acceptance was a powerful motivator. Historians still argue whether the long-term effects of chronic low-dose arsenic poisoning contributed significantly to the general frailty and early mortality rates observed among some segments of the Victorian population. Was it simply the cumulative effect of many such toxic beauty routines, or did arsenic alone bear a substantial burden? You find yourself wondering if that persistent cough or that inexplicable fatigue is just nerves, or if it's the tiny crystalline particles of arsenic settling into your system. And then there's the truly quirky tidbit: some women would even mix arsenic into their face washes, convinced that external application offered similar benefits without the internal risks. As if your skin is some impenetrable fortress, you'd be scrubbing away thinking you're achieving radiant beauty, while in reality you're just inviting the poison in through another, perhaps slower pathway. It's like trying to avoid getting wet by standing in the shower with an umbrella, isn't it? You can almost hear the faint mocking echo of your future self screaming about health codes and toxicology reports. But for now, you just smile, admiring your ghostly reflection, a testament to the deadly lengths you'll go for beauty. With your complexion now a delicate, almost ethereal white thanks to those dubious wafers, your gaze turns to another crucial element of Victorian beauty: your eyes. The ideal was large, sparkling, and critically darkly dilated pupils. This wasn't just about looking pretty. It was about projecting an air of dreamy, almost ethereal innocence, a slight fragility that was deeply admired. And to achieve this, you're introduced to a plant with a beautiful name, but a deadly secret. Belladonna, or beautiful lady in Italian. You'd carefully, almost reverently drop tinctures of this potent substance into your eyes, feeling an immediate, albeit strange sensation. The effects are striking. Your pupils, once of normal size, begin to widen, making your irises appear darker and your eyes seem larger, deeper, and more captivating. You blink and the world around you seems to blur slightly at the edges, a small price to pay for that coveted, alluring gaze. The compliments come quickly, affirming your risky choice. Your eyes are so wonderfully expressive, my dear. Someone might say, completely unaware that you've just dosed yourself with a powerful toxin. Mainstream historical facts confirm that belladonna was indeed used as a cosmetic during the Victorian era, a continuation of a practice dating back centuries. The plant's active compounds, atropine and scopolamine, are parasympathetic alkaloids, meaning they block certain nerve impulses leading to pupil dilation. The problem, of course, is that these same compounds are highly toxic and can have severe side effects beyond blurry vision. It's like putting super glue on your eyelashes to make them look longer. Sure, they'll look longer, but what happens when you try to blink? You might experience a persistent dryness in your mouth, perhaps a racing heart, or even a sense of disorientation, all dismissed as minor discomforts or vapors. The blurry vision makes reading difficult, sewing a chore, and walking downstairs a genuine hazard. But who cares when your eyes are so enchanting? Historians still argue whether the long-term neurological effects of repeated belladonna use contributed to the documented cases of hysteria or general nervous complaints among Victorian women. Was it genuinely a psychological affliction, or simply the cumulative effect of constant exposure to neurotoxins through their beauty routines? It's a fascinating, if grim, debate. And for a truly quirky tidbit, some fashionable ladies would even dab belladonna solution onto their eyelids, believing it would somehow magically seep through the skin and achieve the same effect without directly touching the delicate eye itself. As if your skin is a magic filter that only lets the good parts of the poison in. You can almost hear the eye doctor of the future screaming, "No, no, and more, no." But in your time with those wide, alluring eyes reflecting the gaslight, you feel truly beautiful, utterly oblivious to the subtle, creeping damage you are inflicting upon your precious sight. With your skin now achieving that ethereal pallor and your eyes possessing that captivating, dilated gaze, Your attention shifts to the very foundation of your daily presentation, your face. You're not just looking for a simple touch-up, you're seeking a complete transformation, a flawless canvas upon which to build your Victorian ideal. And in this pursuit, you readily embrace cosmetics that to our modern sensibilities sound like something out of a horror story. You dab on powders and creams laden with lead and mercury, believing them to be the epitome of sophisticated beauty. Imagine applying a face powder perhaps labeled pearl white or milk of roses that delivers not just a matte finish, but a hefty dose of lead carbonate. Or you might use a skin lightener that promises to erase blemishes, its secret ingredient being mercurous chloride, also known as calomel. You feel the cool, slightly heavy texture of the cream as you smooth it over your face, convinced you are perfecting your complexion. Mainstream historical facts unequivocally confirm that these heavy metals were ubiquitous in Victorian makeup. Lead was prized for its opaque white pigment, offering unparalleled coverage in a truly porcelain finish. Mercury, on the other hand, was used for its supposed antiseptic and skin-peeling properties, believed to remove blemishes and lighten the skin by quite literally stripping away layers. It's like using industrial paint thinner to clean your delicate china. It might get it clean, but you're probably going to lose some of the pattern, or worse, the china itself. The immediate effects are often lauded. Your skin looks astonishingly white, any imperfections seemingly vanished under the thick, smooth layer. But soon the consequences begin to manifest. You might notice a strange, metallic taste in your mouth, a persistent headache, or a peculiar tremor in your hands. Your gums might recede, your teeth might loosen, and your skin, far from being pristine, could develop disfiguring lesions or a grayish tint that no amount of powder can truly hide. Historians still argue whether the widespread use of lead and mercury in cosmetics contributed significantly to the general decline in public health during the era, or if it was merely one of many contributing factors alongside poor sanitation and diet. It's a complex tapestry of ailments, isn't it? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some women would even use actual white lead house paint as a face primer, believing its superior opacity would create the ultimate flawless base. You'd probably think, well, if it makes my house look good, it'll make me look good. It's the kind of logic that would make a modern toxicologist spontaneously combust. But in your Victorian world, as you admire your perfectly pallid face, you're simply another devotee to the dangerous allure of toxic tones. Having mastered the art of the toxic complexion, your gaze quite naturally ascends to your crowning glory, your hair. A woman's hair in the Victorian era was a significant marker of her femininity and social standing, often styled in elaborate updos, ringlets, or cascading waves. But achieving the desired shade, especially a rich dark hue, often involved concoctions that were just as dangerous as the lead and mercury you've already so casually applied to your face. You're dipping into the world of hair dye horrors, where huck-lead acetate is a common if terrifying ingredient. Imagine mixing a hair restorer or a coloring tonic in your chamber, a dark, viscous liquid promising to banish gray or deepen your natural shade. This often contained lead acetate, sometimes combined with sulfur, creating a chemical reaction that would darken the hair shaft over time. You'd meticulously brush it through your locks, perhaps even leaving it on overnight, convinced you were simply enhancing your natural beauty. Mainstream historical facts are clear. Lead-based hair dyes were widely available and popular throughout the Victorian period. They work by the lead reacting with the sulfur in the hair's keratin, gradually creating lead sulfide, a dark pigment. The problem, of course, is that lead is a cumulative poison. It's like trying to fix a leaky faucet with a Band-Aid. It might temporarily stop the drip, but you're just creating a bigger, more toxic mess behind the scenes. The immediate results could be impressive, granting your hair that coveted dark sheen. But beneath the surface, the lead wasn't just sitting inertly on your hair. It was absorbed through your scalp, slowly adding to the toxic load already accumulating from your makeup and complexion wafers. You might experience unexplained fatigue, stomach pains, memory loss, or even more severe neurological symptoms, all dismissed as ladies' ailments or stress. Historians still argue whether the widespread use of lead in hair dyes, alongside its presence in cosmetics and even plumbing, created a silent epidemic of lead poisoning that significantly impacted public health and cognitive function in the era. Was it a primary driver of the era's pervasive nervous disorders, or just another straw on the camel's back of poor health? It's certainly enough to make you wonder about the true cost of those perfectly coiffed tresses. And for a truly quirky tidbit, some fashionable ladies aiming for a lighter, almost golden hue would resort to washing their hair in a solution of ammonia and then sitting in direct sunlight for hours. It was a crude, damaging form of bleaching, often leaving hair brittle and straw-like. But hey, if it achieved that sun-kissed look without the sun, you'd probably brave it, wouldn't you? You'd be out there practically roasting your scalp just for that perfect golden gleam. The lengths literally you'd go for beauty. Having indulged in the lead-laced dyes for your hair, you might think you've reached the pinnacle of dangerous beauty. But the Victorian era, ever innovative in its self-destruction, had another insidious secret weapon in its arsenal, promising a truly ethereal, almost supernatural glow. You are now stepping into the realm of radium skincare, where the promise of eternal youth comes with a chilling, invisible price. Imagine being presented with a small pot of cream, perhaps beautifully packaged and labeled Thoradia or Radium Pudra, promising to eradicate wrinkles, banish blemishes, and bestow upon you an incomparable youthful radiance. You apply it diligently, feeling a sense of cutting-edge sophistication, completely unaware that you are quite literally anointing yourself with radioactivity. The marketing for these products was incredibly persuasive, leveraging the then newly discovered element's mystique and perceived life-giving properties. Mainstream historical facts confirm that radium, once heralded as a miracle cure, all was incorporated into a wide array of consumer products in the early 20th century. Though the Victorian era bled into this with the groundwork laid by scientific discoveries of the late 19th. Creams, tonics, and even health drinks containing radium were sold to an eager public captivated by the idea of an invisible energy source that could rejuvenate the body. The logic, if you can call it that, was that radium emitted energy or rays that would stimulate cells, increase circulation, and thereby achieve a youthful glow. It's like believing that if you stand next to a microwave oven, you'll absorb its cooking power and become a better chef. You'd think, oh, it's science, it must be good for me. The immediate effects were, of course, non-existent in terms of positive benefit, but the insidious damage was building. You might notice a subtle tingling sensation, or perhaps no sensation at all, simply believing the product was working its silent magic. Over time, however, the constant exposure to alpha, beta, and gamma radiation would begin its destructive work. Your skin might develop painful sores, persistent inflammation, or even disfiguring lesions. Internally, the radium would mimic calcium accumulating in your bones and causing severe pain, anemia, and ultimately various cancers. Historians still argue whether the widespread use of radium in cosmetics and health products contributed to an underestimated spike in certain rare cancers among women who were otherwise seemingly healthy, or if its impact was more localized to specific heavily exposed populations like the radium girls. It's a chilling thought, isn't it? That your quest for beauty might be slowly turning you into a ticking time bomb. And for a truly quirky tidbit, some of these radium-infused products would even glow faintly in the dark due to the radiation, a macabre feature that was advertised as a sign of their potency. You'd be applying your night cream admiring the faint, eerie luminescence, completely oblivious to the fact that you were literally glowing with death. It's the kind of thing that makes you want to crawl under the covers and pull them over your head, isn't it? With your complexion subtly radioactive and your hair gleaming from its leaden bath, you might now turn your attention to a natural blush. The previous methods for achieving a rosy glow often involve pinching your cheeks or vigorous rubbing, but for the truly dedicated Victorian beauty, there was a more biological approach. You are now contemplating the use of Cornier leeches for rosy cheeks, a practice that merges the bizarre with the surprisingly common. Imagine your maid preparing a small, almost clinical bowl of water. In it, 2 or 3 small, wriggling creatures. These aren't just any worms. These are medicinal leeches, specifically Hirudo medicinalis, prized for their blood-sucking abilities. The idea is to apply them to specific points on your face, often just below the cheekbones, allowing them to draw a small amount of blood to the surface. You feel a strange, cold, suckling sensation as the leech attaches itself, followed by a slight sting as it pierces your skin. Mainstream historical facts confirm that bloodletting in various forms was a common medical practice, well into the 19th century believed to balance the humors or remove bad blood. While not primarily a cosmetic practice, the application of leeches for cosmetic purposes gained traction among those who sought a natural flush without resorting to potentially harmful rouges or dyes. The logic was that by drawing blood to the surface, you would achieve a delicate, long-lasting pinkness, a sign of health and vitality. It's like using a tiny living vacuum cleaner to bring the color to the surface, only instead of dust, it's blood. You'd think there'd be an easier way, wouldn't you? Once the leech has had its fill, or when you decide you've achieved the desired effect, it detaches, leaving behind a small, distinctive Y-shaped bite mark and a lingering redness. The immediate result is indeed a lovely natural flush, a healthy glow that seems to emanate from within. However, there are obvious drawbacks: the potential for infection from the bite, lingering irritation, or even small scars if the process isn't handled with extreme care. Historians still argue whether the perceived benefits of leech therapy for cosmetic purposes outweighed the undeniable risks of infection and discomfort, or if it was simply another example of desperate measures driven by unattainable beauty standards. Was it a calculated risk for a subtle enhancement or a desperate leap into a medically dubious procedure? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some fashion guides of the era would advise women to apply leeches not just to the cheeks, but also behind the ears or even to the temples, believing this would reduce puffiness around the eyes or alleviate headaches, all while subtly contributing to a delicate pallor by drawing blood away from the face. You'd be lying there trying to relax with tiny bloodsuckers doing their work, all for that perfectly flushed, almost sickly chic look. It really puts a whole new spin on getting your beauty sleep, doesn't it? With your external beauty carefully curated from your pallid skin to your leech-kissed cheeks, the Victorian obsession with perfection didn't stop at the surface. You see, the prevailing belief was that true beauty emanated from within. This led to a range of practices aimed at purifying the internal system, the theory being that a clean inside would naturally lead to a radiant outside. You're now entering the world of internal cleansing, a realm where purgatives and laxatives were not just for illness, but for beauty. Imagine waking up and instead of a wholesome breakfast, you're encouraged to consume a dose of something designed to cleanse your system. This might be a bitter draught of senna or rhubarb, a dose of Epsom salts, or even calomel mercury chloride again. You're told that these potent substances will flush out impurities, clear your complexion, and contribute to an overall healthier, more beautiful appearance. You bravely swallow the concoction, enduring the cramps and frequent trips that inevitably follow, all in the name of looking your best. Mainstream historical facts confirm that purgatives were a staple of Victorian medicine and self-care. The belief in auto-intoxication, where the body was thought to poison itself with its own waste products, was widespread. Therefore, regular and vigorous internal cleansing was deemed essential for maintaining health and, by extension, beauty. It's like believing that if you just keep flushing your car's engine with harsh chemicals, it'll run smoother and look shinier. You'd probably say, well, if it's cleaning me inside, it must be good. The immediate effects are undeniably impactful, though perhaps not in the way you'd hope. You feel depleted, often weak, and certainly not radiant, but the prevailing wisdom assures you that this is simply the badness leaving your system. Historians still argue whether the chronic use of harsh purgatives and laxatives, often leading to dehydration and electrolyte imbalances, exacerbated existing health problems or created new ones for Victorian women, rather than improving their beauty or well-being. Was this a genuine attempt at holistic health, or just another form of self-punishment in the relentless pursuit of an ideal? It's a rather uncomfortable debate, isn't it? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some beauty tonics marketed during this era actually contained small amounts of arsenic or strychnine, not just for their supposed invigorating effects, but also because they were believed to stimulate the bowels and aid in internal purification. So while you're busy cleansing, you might also be slowly poisoning yourself. It's like trying to clean your house with a highly corrosive acid. Sure, it'll be clean, but you might not have a house left when you're done. But for now, you just endure the discomfort, believing that every pang is a step closer to true internal radiance. With your internal system supposedly purified and your external appearance meticulously crafted, another Victorian obsession rears its slender head, the ideal of a remarkably thin figure. While corsetry played a significant role, some sought a more direct internal path to a diminished appetite and a smaller waistline. You are now entering the unsettling world of opium for slender figures, where the pursuit of beauty collides tragically with the grip of addiction. Imagine a subtle cough, a touch of nerves, or perhaps simply a desire to curb your appetite. You hear that tincture of opium often presented as laudanum. A popular pain reliever and sedative can also subtly suppress your hunger. You begin to take small, regular doses initially for minor complaints, but soon the calming effect and the accompanying lack of appetite become the true allure. Mainstream historical facts confirm that opium and its derivatives were widely available and socially acceptable in Victorian society, used for everything from teething babies to chronic ailments. There was a general ignorance regarding the addictive properties of these substances, and doctors often prescribed them freely. The idea that opium could assist in weight management wasn't explicitly advertised as a diet aid, but its side effect of appetite suppression would have been a well-known if unspoken benefit for those desiring a slender physique. It's like using modern cold medicine that makes you drowsy and then appreciating the drowsiness because it helps you sleep. You'd think, oh, it helps with my cough, and I'm not hungry, two birds, one stone. The immediate effects are deceptive. You feel a sense of calm, a detachment from hunger pangs, and perhaps a gentle euphoria. Your waistline might indeed become more attenuated as your caloric intake decreases. But this delicate balance quickly tips into dependence. You find yourself needing more and more to achieve the same effect, experiencing withdrawal symptoms, nausea, sweating, intense cravings, if you miss a dose. Historians still argue whether the widespread unacknowledged addiction to opiates among Victorian women significantly impacted their overall health and productivity, or if it was merely a coping mechanism for the myriad physical discomforts and societal pressures of the era. Was it a subtle form of societal control or simply another tragic byproduct of ignorance? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some slimming teas advertised during this period, promising miraculous weight loss, secretly contained small amounts of opium alongside other laxatives and diuretics. You'd be sipping your tea believing you're simply enjoying a healthful beverage, completely unaware you're ingesting a powerful narcotic. It's the ultimate wolf in sheep's clothing, isn't it? As you drift into a drug-induced haze, your figure may be shrinking, but the shadow of addiction grows longer and darker around you. Having explored the dangerous lengths you'd go to for a slender figure and a luminous complexion, let's step back and consider the very foundation of that desired look, the intensely white face. While we've touched on lead and arsenic, the concept of a stark, almost theatrical pallor has roots stretching far beyond the Victorian era. You're now witnessing the Victorian incarnation of what we might call corpse paint's ancestor, a deliberate and dramatic blanking out of the natural skin tone. Imagine preparing for an evening out, not merely applying a little powder, but systematically covering every inch of exposed skin with a dense, opaque white. This wasn't just about looking pale. It was about creating a canvas that almost erased your natural features, allowing your eyes, lips, and hair to stand out in sharp, dramatic contrast. Mainstream historical facts illustrate that the fashion for a stark white face gained particular prominence in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, influenced by aristocratic trends and theatrical makeup then carried into the Victorian era, albeit often in a slightly more naturalized, though still strikingly pale form. The idea was to create a blank slate, a doll-like perfection that hinted at delicacy and an almost ethereal remove from the mundane world. It's like when you're painting a wall and you put down a really thick primer, first knowing that the final color will pop even more. You'd think the whiter, the better, more ethereal, more beautiful. The challenges were numerous. Beyond the inherent toxicity of the pigments, achieving an even streak-free application was an art form in itself. You'd likely spend considerable time blending, ensuring no harsh lines or patchy areas disrupted the illusion of porcelain skin. Historians still argue whether the extreme pallor favored by the Victorians was primarily a direct aesthetic choice, or if it also served as a subtle social indicator of ill health, romanticized as a sign of delicate sensibilities and sensitivity, even though the methods to achieve it often caused ill health. Was it a genuine beauty ideal or a perverse celebration of frailty? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some women would actually use rice flour or finely ground chalk as a cheaper, less toxic alternative to lead-based powders, creating a less durable but equally stark white finish. You'd be dusting yourself with what essentially amounted to blackboard chalk, hoping it wouldn't flake off as you curtsied. It's enough to make you miss your humble setting powder, isn't it? But for now, you stand before the mirror, a ghostly apparition of beauty, the perfect ancestor to future dramatic looks. With your face a porcelain mask and your hair and eyes painstakingly enhanced, your attention might then drift to that very crucial, often overlooked aspect of overall presentation, your smile. In an era before widespread modern dentistry, maintaining healthy teeth and a fresh breath was a significant challenge, leading to routines that now seem both primitive and painfully ineffective. You are now navigating the world of a dental distress, where tooth care was a series of trials rather than a pleasant routine. Imagine beginning your day with a tooth powder that might contain pulverized cuttlefish bone, brick dust, or even charcoal. You'd apply this abrasive mixture with a stiff brush made of hog bristles, vigorously scrubbing your teeth, often causing more harm than good to your gums and enamel. Mainstream historical facts indicate that while rudimentary forms of toothpaste and toothbrushes existed, their effectiveness and safety were highly questionable. Dentists were more often practitioners of extraction than preservation, and preventative care was largely misunderstood. The prevailing belief was that vigorous scrubbing, even with harsh abrasives, was the best way to remove tartar and keep teeth white. It's like trying to clean a delicate watch with sandpaper. You might get rid of some grime, but you're probably going to scratch the glass and damage the gears. You'd grit your teeth literally through the discomfort, hoping for a gleaming smile. Beyond the daily scrub, you might resort to more drastic measures for a truly dazzling set of pearly whites. For bad breath, rinsing with diluted carbolic acid, a harsh disinfectant, was not uncommon, offering temporary relief at the cost of further damage to your oral tissues. For stubborn stains, some might even try to scrape them off with a metal pick, a painful and potentially damaging practice. Historians still argue whether the widespread dental issues of the Victorian era, cavities, gum disease, and tooth loss, were primarily due to a diet high in sugar and processed foods, or if the primitive and often damaging dental hygiene practices played an equally significant, if not greater, role. Was it the food or the cure that caused more suffering? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some fashionable ladies, upon losing a front tooth, would have a replacement made from the tooth of a deceased soldier or even an animal. You'd essentially be walking around with a piece of someone else's or something else's mouth in your own, all for the sake of a complete smile. It's the ultimate in reuse and recycle, isn't it? But for now, you just hope your breath is fresh enough to hide any lingering odors from your latest tooth powder experiment. Having faced the trials of dental hygiene, your gaze inevitably falls upon other, less desirable growths, unwanted hair. In an era where modesty was paramount and a delicate, almost childlike femininity was idealized, any hint of excessive body hair was considered unfeminine and unrefined. You are now exploring the often painful and sometimes dangerous world of the Victorian depilation. Imagine meticulously scrutinizing your arms, your upper lip, or your décolletage for any stray hairs that might disrupt your image of delicate perfection. To address these, you might turn to a depilatory cream or a hair destroyer, promises of smooth skin contained within often dubious mixtures. These concoctions frequently contain ingredients like quicklime calcium oxide or arsenic sulfides, chemicals that would effectively dissolve the hair, but often at the cost of your skin. You'd apply the paste, feeling a distinct burning sensation, hoping the hair would vanish before your skin blistered. Mainstream historical facts reveal that while full body hair removal wasn't as pervasive as it is today, the removal of visible facial and arm hair was a common practice among women of all classes. Advertisements for depilatories abounded, promising painless and effective solutions, often with little to no mention of the caustic chemicals involved. It's like trying to remove a stain with acid. Sure, the stain might be gone, but so might the fabric. You'd endure the stinging and discomfort, believing it was simply the price of refinement. Beyond the chemical solutions, more primitive and equally painful methods were also employed. Plucking with tweezers was, of course, a common practice. But imagine attempting to remove dozens of fine hairs from your upper lip, one excruciating pull at a time. Some more adventurous souls might even attempt to singe off unwanted hair with a flame, a truly perilous endeavor that often resulted in minor burns or uneven patches. Historians still argue whether the increased prevalence of skin irritation and inflammation among Victorian women was primarily due to unsanitary conditions and poor general health, or if the frequent application of harsh depilatories played a significant under-recognized role. Was the constant battle against hair doing more harm than good to their delicate skin? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some fashion guides of the era would suggest making a paste of strong lye and water, then applying it quickly to the desired area before rinsing it off immediately. The extreme alkalinity would strip the hair, but also risked severe chemical burns. You'd be rushing, heart-pounding, trying to achieve smooth skin before your face resembled a raw steak. It truly puts a whole new spin on beauty is pain, doesn't it? Having endured the trials of depilation, your focus now shifts to shaping your entire silhouette. In the Victorian era, no aspect of a woman's figure was left to chance, and the most defining garment was, without a doubt, the corset. You're now about to experience the corset extremes, where achieving a tiny waist was paramount, often at the painful expense of your internal organs. Imagine the ritual morning after morning. You stand as your maid, or perhaps a willing family member pulls the laces tighter and tighter, gradually reducing your waist circumference by several inches. You feel the squeeze around your ribs, the gentle upward push of your bust, and the downward compression of your abdomen. The ideal was an impossibly small waist, often compared to an hourglass or even a wasp, a stark contrast to your natural figure. Mainstream historical facts confirm that corsetry was not just a fashion accessory, but a fundamental garment worn by most women from adolescence onward. While there's a modern myth of women habitually tight-lacing to the point of permanent organ damage, the everyday reality was usually less extreme, though still restrictive. However, a significant number of dedicated followers did push the boundaries, aiming for waists as small as 18 or even 16 inches. It's like trying to fit a melon into a teacup. Something's got to give, and usually it's your ability to breathe deeply or digest comfortably. You'd endure the discomfort, accepting it as the normal feeling of being properly dressed. The immediate effects are clear: a dramatically altered silhouette emphasizing a tiny waist and a full bust, and hips creating that quintessential Victorian figure. However, the long-term consequences could be severe. You might experience difficulty breathing, shallow respiration, and chronic indigestion as your internal organs were compressed and displaced. Ribs could become deformed, and prolonged pressure could weaken back muscles, leading to dependence on the corset for support. Historians still argue whether corsetry was a tool of oppression, forcing women into restrictive and unhealthy forms, or if it was for many simply an accepted fashion choice that offered a sense of structure and elegance, much like high heels or shapewear today. Was it a cage or a beloved enhancement? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some fashion plates and satirical cartoons of the era would depict women literally fainting from the tightness of their corsets, a dramatic exaggeration that, while humorous, hinted at the very real discomfort and health risks involved. You'd probably scoff at such caricatures, secretly adjusting your laces for just one more inch. But you know that little gasp for air after a particularly tight lacing? That's not just a fashion statement, it's your body telling you something. With your figure cinched into that coveted hourglass shape, you might feel a sense of triumphant beauty. But the Victorian era presented yet another subtle yet pervasive challenge to your carefully constructed image: the ever-present threat of body odor. In a time before widespread daily bathing and effective deodorants, managing personal scent was a constant battle, leading you to rely heavily on the deceptive allure of our perfumes and powders. Imagine your daily routine beginning not just with dressing, but with a liberal application of scented products. You'd dust yourself with rice powder, often infused with delicate floral or musky notes, believing it would absorb perspiration and impart a fresh fragrance. Then you'd douse yourself with various perfumes, from heavy floral bouquets to exotic animalic musks, layering them on your skin and even your clothes. Mainstream historical facts tell us that, while bathing was certainly done, it wasn't the daily ritual we know today, especially for those in colder climates or with limited access to running water. Consequently, masking natural body odors was a significant concern, and the perfume industry thrived, offering an array of scents for both men and women. The idea was to create a fragrant aura that would precede you, signaling cleanliness and refinement, even if the underlying reality was less fresh. It's like trying to hide a leaky faucet by constantly spraying air freshener. It might smell nice for a bit, but the problem is still there, isn't it? The immediate effect is, of course, a delightful olfactory cloud around you, obscuring any less pleasant natural emanations. However, these heavy, often alcohol-based perfumes combined with potentially irritating powders could sometimes exacerbate skin issues or even trigger headaches and respiratory complaints, particularly in confined spaces. Historians still argue whether the prevalent use of strong perfumes in enclosed Victorian spaces contributed to the spread of respiratory ailments or if it was simply a necessary evil given the hygiene challenges of the era. Was it a charming accessory or a subtle irritant? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some fashionable ladies would carry small decorative vinaigrettes or smelling salts, not just for fainting spells, which remember sometimes coincided with tight corsets, but also to sniff when encountering particularly unpleasant street odors or less fastidious company. You'd discreetly lift your tiny silver box to your nose, perhaps even with a delicate sniff, all while exuding a cloud of your own chosen fragrance. It's a bit like a covert chemical warfare, isn't it? Trying to outsmell the world around you, but for now you just breathe deeply, confident in your fragrant shield against the olfactory challenges of the age. With your fragrant aura firmly established, you might feel quite confident in your beauty. Yet even in this era of meticulously crafted appearances, there was a subtle, almost defiant trend that allowed for a controlled hint of imperfection: the punted beauty patch. You're now considering the strategic placement of tiny velvet or silk shapes on your face, not to hide flaws, but to highlight them or even to send a coded message. Imagine reaching for a small box containing an assortment of tiny adhesive shapes, stars, moon's hearts, or simple rounds. You carefully select one, perhaps a crescent moon, and apply it just above your eyebrow or near the corner of your eye. The idea wasn't to cover a blemish. In fact, you might deliberately place it next to a mole or a dimple, drawing attention to a feature rather than concealing it. Mainstream historical facts confirm that beauty patches, or mouches as they were called in earlier centuries, had a long history, peaking in popularity during the 17th and 18th centuries and making a charming if subtle comeback during the Victorian era. Initially used to cover smallpox scars, they evolved into a fashion statement, a playful artifice that countered the relentless pursuit of flawless skin. It's like wearing a small decorative band-aid when you don't have a cut just because it looks interesting. You'd think everyone else is trying to be perfect, but I can be perfectly imperfect. The placement of these patches was often highly deliberate and could even convey meaning. A patch near the mouth might suggest flirtatiousness, while one on the forehead could signify a more serious or intellectual disposition. It was a subtle, almost secret language communicated through tiny adornments. Historians still argue whether the resurgence of the beauty patch in the Victorian era was a genuine aesthetic choice, a nostalgic nod to earlier styles, or a quiet rebellion against the increasingly rigid and demanding beauty standards of the time. Was it a frivolous fashion or a symbolic statement of individuality? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some patches were even impregnated with perfume, releasing a subtle scent as you moved, adding another layer to your sensory presentation. You'd be walking around a tiny perfumed star clinging to your cheek, perhaps secretly signaling your intentions to a discerning admirer. It's far more intriguing than just a simple sticker, isn't it? With your beauty patch strategically placed, perhaps hinting at a playful defiance, your attention now turns to the elements. While the ideal Victorian complexion was a delicate white, the sun remained a persistent threat to this coveted pallor. You are now about to discover the truly imaginative and sometimes outlandish approaches to the Victorian sunscreen. A far cry from your modern SPF. Imagine a sweltering summer day, and you're contemplating a stroll through the park or a visit to the botanical gardens. To protect your precious complexion, you wouldn't reach for a tube of zinc oxide. Instead, you might prepare a face water containing ingredients like cucumber juice, or perhaps a paste made from oatmeal and rosewater. These were believed to soothe the skin and offer some protection from the sun's harsh rays, though their efficacy was, shall we say, debatable. Mainstream historical facts indicate that hats, parasols, and long sleeves were the primary and most effective forms of sun protection for Victorian women. However, for direct skin application, various household remedies and proprietary concoctions were promoted as ways to prevent freckles, sunburn, and tanning, all of which were considered highly undesirable. It's like trying to protect yourself from a thunderstorm with a sieve. It might make you feel better, but it's not going to do much against the downpour. You'd apply these mixtures, feeling a sense of diligent self-care, completely unaware of their minimal actual protective value. Beyond these topical applications, some methods veered into the truly peculiar. Remember that crocodile dung sunscreen? No, not really. But a truly quirky tidbit is that some fashion-conscious individuals would apply a thin layer of crisp powder mixed with lemon juice to their face, believing the combination would both whiten the skin and provide a barrier against the sun. You'd be walking around smelling faintly of citrus and rice, hoping your makeshift shield would hold up against the summer glare. The acidic lemon juice, far from protecting, would likely make your skin more sensitive to the sun over time. Historians still argue whether the widespread aversion to sun exposure among Victorians was solely a class indicator, or if there was a growing, albeit unscientific, understanding of the sun's potential to damage skin and accelerate aging. Was it pure snobbery or a rudimentary, misguided attempt at skincare? You might find yourself squinting, not from the sun, but from the sheer audacity of these routines. But for now, you simply hope your face remains as unblemished and pale as a freshly laundered sheet. With your face cautiously protected from the sun's tanning rays, your attention drifts downwards to another area revealing of social grace, your hands. In an era where manual labor roughened skin, delicate soft hands with well-kept nails were a clear indicator of leisure and refinement. You are now immersing yourself in the meticulous routines of hand and nail care, often involving concoctions that might raise a modern eyebrow. Imagine preparing for a social call or an evening at the opera. Your hands, perpetually exposed, require careful tending. You wouldn't just quickly apply a dollop of hand cream. Instead, you might soak your hands in a warm bath infused with almond oil and borax, believing it would soften the skin and whiten the nails. Following this, you'd meticulously push back your cuticles with an orange stick and perhaps even polish your nails with a chamois buffer, aiming for a natural sheen rather than a painted gloss. Mainstream historical facts confirm that hand care was a significant part of a Victorian woman's beauty regimen. Advertisements for hand whiteners, nail strengtheners, and emollients were common, reflecting the societal emphasis on delicate, unblemished hands. The goal was to maintain a pristine appearance, a stark contrast to the rough, calloused hands of the working class. It's like obsessing over the finish on your antique furniture. Every scratch or dull spot detracts from its perceived value. You diligently follow these steps, convinced you were maintaining the very essence of your ladylike status. Beyond the softening soaks, some methods for nail care were surprisingly rigorous. For stubborn stains or yellowing, some would rub their nails with lemon slices, believing the acid would naturally bleach them. For brittle nails, applications of castor oil or even gelatin from animal hooves, by the time it reached you, were thought to strengthen them from the outside. Historians still argue whether the elaborate hand and nail routines of the Victorians genuinely improved skin health, or if the constant soaking and application of various substances often led to irritation and dryness, and even fungal infections due to improper drying and ventilation. Was it a beneficial practice or a counterproductive ritual? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some fashion guides suggested wearing special night gloves after applying hand creams or balms, believing the warmth would help the emollients penetrate more deeply. You'd be sleeping with your hands encased in silk or cotton, feeling faintly ridiculous but convinced you were waking up to hands as soft as a baby's. It's an extra layer of commitment, isn't it, even in your sleep? But for now, you admire your delicately cared-for digits, ready to present them to the world. With your hands now soft and your nails gleaming, your journey through Victorian beauty rituals descends quite literally to your feet. Often hidden within layers of restrictive shoes and long skirts, foot care might seem like a neglected aspect, but for the discerning Victorian woman, it was another silent testament to her overall refinement. You're now exploring the often unseen and sometimes peculiar world of our foot care follies. Punarakani. Imagine the relief of finally removing your tightly laced boots and thick stockings at the end of a long day. Your feet confined and often subjected to prolonged standing or walking would undoubtedly be tired and perhaps even aching. To soothe them, you wouldn't just use a simple foot soak. Instead, you might prepare a warm bath for your feet infused with ingredients like vinegar and salt, believed to reduce swelling and soften calluses. Mainstream historical facts suggest that while less outwardly glamorous than facial or hair care, foot health was nonetheless important, especially given the prevalent styles of restrictive footwear that often cause bunions, corns, and blisters. Various home remedies and specific foot powders or foot lotions were advertised to alleviate discomfort and maintain delicate skin. It's like trying to make a cramped little apartment feel spacious by just rearranging the furniture. It might help a little, but the fundamental problem of space remains. You dutifully soak and rub, hoping to restore comfort and maintain a presentable appearance, even if no one else would see them. Beyond the soothing soaks, some methods for addressing foot ailments were surprisingly aggressive. For persistent corns, you might apply a plaster containing salicylic acid derived from willow bark, which would slowly eat away at the hardened skin, often causing discomfort and irritation. For tired arches, some would even try rudimentary foot massages with various liniments that often contained alcohol or camphor. Historians still argue whether the common foot ailments of the Victorian era were primarily a result of ill-fitting and restrictive footwear, or if the often harsh remedies used to treat them sometimes exacerbated the problems, leading to chronic irritation and pain. Was it the shoes or the solutions that caused more grief? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some fashion guides of the era would suggest soaking your feet in a mixture of wash, cow's milk, and bran for extreme softening and whitening, especially before a rare public unveiling of the feet, perhaps at a private spa visit. You'd be splashing around in dairy and grain, feeling a bit like a breakfast cereal, all for the sake of perfectly pampered trotters. It's certainly a step beyond just a simple pedicure, isn't it? But for now, you just breathe a sigh of relief as your weary feet find a moment of peculiar pampering. With your feet now surprisingly pampered, albeit by unusual means, it's time to step back and survey the entire Victorian beauty tableau. What you'll notice is a striking paradox. Despite the often extreme and artificial means employed, the ultimate goal was often to achieve what was considered the natural look. You're now seeing the artifice of innocence, where hours of painstaking work culminated in an appearance meant to suggest effortless, untouched beauty. Imagine rising in the morning, not with the intention of applying obvious layers of makeup, but rather to create a subtle illusion. Your pale skin, those subtly dilated eyes, the hint of a blush, the perfectly coiffed hair. Each element was carefully constructed to appear as though you had simply woken up that way, perhaps after a restful night and with the bloom of youth upon you. Mainstream historical facts reveal that overt makeup, such as heavily painted lips or noticeable blush, was generally considered vulgar and associated with actresses or women of questionable morals. The ideal was a delicate, innocent beauty that appeared unadorned, even if every inch of it was the result of meticulous and often dangerous routines. It's like a magician performing a trick that looks simple but involves incredible skill and hidden mechanics. You'd spend hours perfecting a look that was designed to make it seem like you spent no time at all. This pursuit of natural artifice extended to every detail. Your hair might be elaborately styled, but the aim was for soft waves or intricate braids that looked as though they simply fell into place. Your lips might be subtly enhanced with a dab of rose water or beet juice, just enough for a healthy tint, but never a bold color. Historians still argue whether this emphasis on a natural yet manufactured beauty contributed to a deeper psychological burden on Victorian women, constantly striving for an unattainable ideal of effortless perfection, or if it was simply a reflection of the era's broader societal values of modesty and subtlety. Was it empowering to achieve this illusion, or debilitating to pursue it? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some fashionable ladies would bite their lips or pinch their cheeks vigorously just before entering a room, attempting to bring natural color to their face without resorting to obvious cosmetics. You'd be discreetly bruising your face, all for a fleeting moment of what everyone else would perceive as an innate blushing beauty. It's the ultimate secret weapon, isn't it? A pain-induced glow. But for now, you stand a living testament to the meticulously crafted, natural woman, an innocent facade hiding a world of hidden rituals. Having perfected the illusion of natural beauty through rather unnatural means, your gaze turns to another crucial element of a woman's allure: her hair. While we've discussed the dangers of dyes, the sheer volume and elaborate styling demanded by Victorian fashion often required more than just your own locks could provide. You're now entering the world of hair extensions, where the source of those voluminous braids and cascading curls might surprise you. Imagine admiring a fashionable lady's elaborate coiffure, perhaps a towering chignon or a cascade of ringlets, and wondering how she could possibly possess such an abundance of hair. The secret, more often than not, lay in supplemental hair. Mainstream historical facts confirm that human hair extensions were widely used and highly prized in the Victorian era. Hairdressers would incorporate false hair, often in the form of plaits, curls, or even entire wigs, to achieve the fashionable, voluminous styles that were impossible with natural hair alone. It's like watching a modern pop star's dramatic hairstyle and instinctively knowing there's a team of stylists and a lot of extra hair involved. You'd view these additions not as deceit, but as an essential tool for achieving the desired aesthetic. The sourcing of this human hair was a fascinating, if sometimes macabre, business. It often came from poorer women, particularly those in rural areas, or even from convent girls who might cut their hair for income. There were active markets for human hair, and it was considered a valuable commodity. Once acquired, the hair would be cleaned, processed, and then skillfully woven or attached to your own hair by a professional hairdresser, or even by your maid. Historians still argue whether the demand for human hair for extensions was primarily driven by fashion trends, or if it also reflected a societal expectation for a certain level of luxuriant femininity that was simply unattainable for many women naturally. Was it a harmless indulgence or a pressure point on less fortunate women? And for a truly quirky tidbit, it wasn't uncommon for hair acquired from deceased individuals to be used particularly in times of scarcity or when specific colors were hard to come by. So while you're admiring your magnificent new braids, you might unknowingly be sporting the locks of someone who has long since passed on. It's a rather chilling thought, isn't it? But in your quest for the perfect Victorian mane, you embrace the cunning integration of additional tresses regardless of their origin. While much of our journey through Victorian beauty has focused on the feminine, the gentlemen of the era were by no means exempt from meticulous, sometimes elaborate grooming rituals. Indeed, a well-maintained beard or a perfectly sculpted mustache was as much a status symbol for a man as a tiny waist was for a woman. You are now delving into the world of beard and mustache care, a testament to masculine grooming. Imagine a Victorian gentleman beginning his day not with a quick shave, but with a careful tending to his facial hair. Whether he sported a full flowing beard, a neatly trimmed imperialis, or a jaunty handlebar mustache, each required considerable attention. He would apply specialized beard oils or balms, often scented with sandalwood or bay rum, to condition the hair and give it a healthy sheen. Then, with miniature combs and brushes, he would meticulously shape and sculpt his facial hair, perhaps even using a heated curling iron for particularly stubborn mustache ends. Mainstream historical facts confirm that facial hair enjoyed immense popularity among men throughout much of the Victorian era, evolving in style from bushy full beards in the mid-century to more sculpted and stylized mustaches by the late 1800s. A well-groomed beard was seen as a sign of virility, wisdom, and respectability, almost like a sartorial accessory that conveyed maturity and gravitas. It's like tending to a prized bonsai tree. Every snip and every brush stroke contributes to its perfect form. You'd observe this ritual with a mixture of quiet reverence and perhaps a touch of wry amusement. Beyond the daily oiling and brushing, some men would go to great lengths to achieve the ideal color or thickness for their facial hair. For thinning beards, they might try various hair tonics or beard accelerators, often containing questionable ingredients similar to those found in women's hair dyes, though perhaps with less lead and more herbal extracts. For stiffness and shape, specialized waxes and pomades were indispensable, designed to hold gravity-defying curls in place. Historians still argue whether the widespread fashion for beards among Victorian men was primarily a response to practical concerns like warmth or perceived hygiene in an era of infrequent bathing, or if it was more deeply rooted in changing notions of masculinity and a desire to project a certain authoritative image. Was it about comfort or command? And for a truly quirky tidbit, competitions for the most impressive beard or mustache were actually held particularly in the later part of the century, where gentlemen would vie for titles based on length, luster, and sculptural integrity. You'd probably see these gentlemen preening, subtly adjusting their magnificent facial adornments, hoping to catch the judge's eye. It's a bit like a Westminster dog show, but for human facial hair, isn't it? But for now, you just admire the sheer dedication involved in cultivating such magnificent masculine adornments. While much of our Victorian journey has focused on achieving slenderness, sometimes through dubious means, there was a fascinating counter-trend that challenged this prevailing ideal, particularly as the century wore on. You're now encountering an era where for some, weight gain for beauty was actually a desirable, even celebrated attribute. Imagine a time when a woman with a voluptuous figure wasn't just tolerated, but admired. A certain plumpness, particularly in the arms, busts, and hips, could signify health, fertility, and even a comfortable life free from the physical hardships of labor. This wasn't about being overtly fat, but about embodying a soft, rounded ideal that spoke of prosperity and ease. Mainstream historical facts reveal that while the wasp waist remained a dominant fashion, the ideal female form varied considerably throughout the Victorian era and across social strata. For many, a fuller figure was a sign of well-being, contrasting sharply with the gauntness that might accompany poverty or illness. It's like when you're looking at a painting from the Renaissance and you see those incredibly rounded figures and you realize beauty standards really do shift, don't they? You'd see portraits and fashion plates showcasing women with ample curves, a testament to this alternative aesthetic. To achieve this desirable plumpness, some would actively try to increase their weight, often through specific diets or even fattening tonics. These might involve consuming rich foods, specific milky concoctions, or even small doses of medicinal alcohol believed to stimulate appetite and aid in digestion. Historians still argue whether the preference for a fuller figure in certain segments of Victorian society was a genuine aesthetic appreciation, or if it was primarily an economic statement, indicating that a woman was well-fed and therefore came from a prosperous background. Was it a look or a lifestyle advertisement? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some beauty manuals of the era actually contained recipes for weight-gaining concoctions, specifically advising on what to eat and drink to achieve a more pleasing plumpness. You'd be meticulously following a meal plan designed not to restrict, but to expand, perhaps secretly enjoying the extra cream in your tea. It's a delightful reversal of fortunes, isn't it, to gain weight for beauty instead of against it? But for now, you just admire the soft curves, a beautiful counterpoint to the era's more restrictive ideals. With the fascinating counter-narrative of weight gain for beauty, now understood, your journey through Victorian aesthetics reveals another powerful force shaping both ideals and routines, the burgeoning world of commerce. For all the home remedies and secret concoctions, a new era was dawning, one where beauty was increasingly a product to be bought. You're now witnessing the rise of advertising, and with it, the commercialization of beauty. Imagine flipping through a popular magazine or newspaper of the era. Among the news and serialized novels, vivid advertisements leap out at you, promising miraculous transformations. Dr. Scott's electric hairbrush for luxurious tresses, Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup for a radiant complexion. We won't mention the opium content in the latter, of course. These weren't subtle suggestions. They were bold, persuasive declarations, often featuring idealized illustrations of women achieving perfect beauty thanks to the advertised product. Mainstream historical facts confirm that the late Victorian era saw an explosion in mass-produced consumer goods, and beauty products were a significant part of this. Advances in printing technology allowed for widespread distribution of magazines and newspapers, creating a fertile ground for advertising to flourish. Manufacturers eager to tap into the universal desire for attractiveness began to market their wares aggressively, often making exaggerated or completely unsubstantiated claims. It's like today's influencer culture, but instead of sponsored posts, it's full-page newspaper ads shouting about miracle elixirs. You'd be bombarded with these messages, constantly told what you needed to buy to be beautiful. The sheer volume of these advertisements meant that beauty standards, once perhaps dictated by courtly fashion or local trends, became increasingly standardized and disseminated across vast distances. Women in London and ladies in remote country villages might now aspire to the same advertised ideals. Historians still argue whether the rise of mass advertising in the beauty industry created new anxieties and insecurities among women, constantly comparing themselves to unattainable ideals, or if it simply offered more accessible solutions to existing desires for self-improvement. Did it empower women with choice or subtly manipulate them into consuming potentially harmful products? It's a complex interplay of desire and commerce, isn't it? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some of these early beauty advertisements would include testimonials from satisfied customers, often fabricated or paid complete with before and after illustrations that were, to put it mildly, less than honest. You'd pore over these dramatic transformations, convinced that if only you bought that particular cream or that specific tonic, your own complexion would be miraculously cleared overnight. It's a bit like believing everything you see on late-night infomercials, isn't it? But for now, you just feel the subtle pull of aspiration, a desire to purchase your way to perfect Victorian beauty. As you delve deeper into the burgeoning market of beauty products, a fascinating dynamic emerges: the blurred lines between medicine and cosmetology. In the Victorian era, a potion promising to cure your ailments might also promise to enhance your looks, and vice versa. You're now observing how the medical versus cosmetic concerns often intertwine in the pursuit of beauty. Imagine visiting an apothecary or reading a health journal. You'll find advertisements for tonics that promise to invigorate your liver and simultaneously clear your complexion, or salves designed to heal skin conditions while also smoothing wrinkles. The prevailing belief was that external beauty was a direct reflection of internal health. Therefore, many beauty products were marketed with a quasi-medical authority, suggesting they were not merely superficial adornments, but essential treatments for well-being. Mainstream historical facts show that medical understanding in the Victorian era was still evolving, and the concept of specialized fields like dermatology or cosmetology was nascent. Many remedies were holistic in their claims, addressing both health and appearance. It's like having a single product that claims to fix your car engine, clean its exterior, and make it fly. The promises are vast because the understanding of specifics is still developing. You'd readily accept that a product that cured your indigestion might also give you a glowing complexion. This convergence meant that consumers often ingested or applied substances with potent, unregulated ingredients under the guise of health or cure, not just vanity. Arsenic, mercury, and lead were not just beauty enhancers. They were also present in various health tonics and patent medicines, promising cures for everything from headaches to consumption. Historians still argue whether the medical claims attached to beauty products in the Victorian era were primarily cynical marketing ploys to exploit consumer ignorance, or if they genuinely reflected the holistic, albeit often misguided, medical philosophy of the time. Was it exploitation or simply a reflection of developing science? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some complexion pills widely advertised and consumed for their skin-clearing properties actually contain powerful laxatives, acting on the belief that a clean digestive system was key to a clear complexion. So while you're diligently trying to achieve radiant skin, you're also ensuring frequent unscheduled trips to the water closet, all in the name of looking your best. It's an inconvenient path to beauty, isn't it? But for now, you just accept the blurred lines, trusting that what's good for your health must surely be good for your looks. Having navigated the murky waters where medicine and beauty converged, you might now be tempted by a more personal, hands-on approach to your appearance. Before the full proliferation of commercial products, and often as a cheaper alternative to them, many Victorian women turned to their own kitchens and gardens for their beauty needs. You're now entering the realm of DIY beauty recipes, where home concoctions, though seemingly innocuous, often carry their own hidden risks. Imagine consulting a handwritten family recipe book, or perhaps a popular ladies' journal for instructions on creating your own beauty aids. You might find a recipe for a complexion wash, calling for rosewater glycerin, and perhaps a dash of spirits of wine or a hair tonic brewed from rosemary and nettles. These concoctions were often passed down through generations or shared among friends, providing a sense of self-sufficiency and thrift. Mainstream historical facts confirm that home remedies were a crucial part of Victorian self-care, particularly for those with limited access to manufactured goods or specialized services. Women experimented with various natural ingredients, believing in the power of herbs, fruits, and household staples to enhance their beauty. It's like your grandmother's secret recipe for cookies, but for your face. You'd feel a sense of pride in crafting your own beauty solutions, believing them to be purer and safer than anything bought from a shop. However, the natural label didn't always equate to safe. While some ingredients like oatmeal or honey were genuinely beneficial, others could be irritating or even harmful, especially when misused or combined incorrectly. For instance, some popular recipes for skin whitening might call for lemon juice, which, as we discussed, can make skin more sensitive to the sun, or a blemish cure might involve applying strong vinegar, risking chemical burns. Historians still argue whether the reliance on unregulated homemade beauty recipes contributed significantly to skin ailments and other health issues among Victorian women, or if these practices were largely benign, with any negative effects outweighed by the dangers of commercial products. Was homemade always better, or simply different risks? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some recipes for hair strengthening would advise rubbing onions or garlic directly into the scalp, believing their pungent properties would stimulate hair growth. You'd be diligently massaging your scalp, your eyes watering from the fumes, hoping for luxuriant locks despite the rather aggressive aroma. It's certainly a commitment to the cause, isn't it? Enduring such an olfactory assault for the sake of beauty. But for now, you just carefully measure out your ingredients, a confident chemist in your own domestic laboratory. From the humble home concoction, your gaze now turns to a new horizon in the beauty landscape, dedicated establishments promising professional expertise. As the Victorian era progressed, specialized spaces began to emerge, signaling a shift from purely domestic rituals to commercial services. You are now stepping into the fascinating world of beauty parlors, a new frontier for personal transformation. Imagine a discreet storefront in a bustling town, its windows perhaps adorned with subtle advertisements for facial treatments or hairdressing. You'd enter not to purchase a product to take home, but to receive a service administered by trained, or at least self-proclaimed, professionals. These early beauty parlors offered a range of treatments from elaborate hairstyling and permanent waving, often involving heated tongs and caustic chemicals, to facials using steaming apparatuses and various unguents. Mainstream historical facts indicate that while not as ubiquitous as today's salons, the late Victorian and Edwardian periods saw the gradual establishment of beauty parlors and hairdressing salons, especially in urban centers. These establishments catered to a growing demand for specialized treatments that were difficult or impossible to achieve at home, reflecting a rising disposable income for some and a burgeoning professionalization of personal care. It's like when you move from doing all your own car repairs to taking it to a specialized mechanic. It's about accessing expertise and tools you don't have at home. You'd feel a thrill of modern sophistication embracing these new avenues for beauty. However, professional didn't always mean safe. Regulation was virtually non-existent, and the knowledge of hygiene and chemical safety was rudimentary at best. Tools might not be properly sterilized, and the very same dangerous chemicals you've encountered in homemade remedies or even more potent versions could be applied by someone else. Historians still argue whether the early beauty parlors, despite their potential for harm, played a significant role in empowering women by offering them new spaces for self-care and social interaction, or if they merely reinforced unattainable beauty standards through new commercial avenues. Were they havens of pampering or unhygienic traps? And for a truly quirky tidbit, Some of these early parlors offered electric treatments for the complexion using primitive galvanic currents believed to stimulate the skin and reduce wrinkles. You'd lie back, perhaps feeling a strange tingling sensation as mild electric currents passed through your face, convinced you were receiving cutting-edge, rejuvenating therapy. It's the kind of thing that would make a modern esthetician gasp, isn't it? But for now, you just relax, trusting your appearance to the new experts of beauty. You've traversed a fascinating, often unsettling landscape of Victorian beauty rituals, from arsenic wafers to electric facials. As you reflect on these practices, the lingering question becomes, what is the enduring impact of this era's obsession with appearance? You're now confronting the legacy of poisons, pondering how far beauty standards have truly evolved, and the enduring lessons from a time when self-improvement often meant self-destruction. Imagine holding a modern cosmetic product in your hand, a face cream, a hair dye, a lipstick. You might instinctively glance at the ingredient list, a habit born from decades of scientific advancement and consumer protection. This modern caution stands in stark contrast to the Victorian willingness to embrace concoctions with lead, mercury, arsenic, and even radium. Mainstream historical facts unequivocally show that the long-term health consequences of these Victorian beauty practices were devastating, leading to chronic illness, disfigurement, and premature death for countless individuals. The sheer lack of scientific understanding, coupled with aggressive, unregulated advertising, created a perfect storm where vanity often outweighed basic safety. It's like looking at an antique car and appreciating its design, but knowing you'd never trust it on a modern highway without airbags and seatbelts. You'd feel a profound sense of gratitude for the scientific progress that has mostly removed such immediate dangers from your vanity table. The dangerous legacy extends beyond specific chemicals. It speaks to a broader cultural truth, the intense pressure to conform to often unrealistic beauty ideals, a pressure that, while less overtly toxic today, still manifests in different forms. You might find yourself comparing the Victorian woman's struggle for a tiny waist to modern obsessions with extreme diets or cosmetic surgery. Historians still argue whether the Victorian era, with its rampant use of dangerous beauty products, represents a unique historical anomaly, or if it was merely an amplified version of humanity's enduring, often desperate quest for beauty, regardless of the cost. Is our modern pursuit of perfection fundamentally different or just technologically more advanced? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some modern beauty enthusiasts, in a strange echo of the past, occasionally experiment with vintage beauty recipes, found in old texts, often without fully understanding the historical context or the potential dangers of the original ingredients. You'd wince remembering the lead acetate and silently hope they've opted for a very modernized, non-toxic version. It's a testament to how some ideas, even dangerous ones, never quite fade away, is it? But for now, you just contemplate the chilling lessons learned and the incredible progress that has thankfully made your own beauty routine a little less life-threatening. Having explored the visible and sometimes dangerous elements of your Victorian persona, from the porcelain complexion to the cinched waist, let's now consider the invisible yet deeply personal aspect of your presence, your scent. In an era where hygiene was a constant battle, the subtle art of perfume application became paramount, creating a personal aura that was as much a part of your beauty as your lace or your coiffure. Imagine preparing for a crowded social gathering. You wouldn't simply spray perfume onto your skin as you might today. Instead, you'd meticulously consider where your chosen fragrance would best linger and diffuse. You might dab a rich floral essence onto the ribbons of your bonnet, allowing it to unfurl with every turn of your head. Or perhaps you'd saturate a small sachet, tucking it deep within the folds of your skirts so that a delicate hint of rose or violet wafted up with every graceful movement. Mainstream historical facts confirm that perfume use was widespread across classes, though the quality and subtlety varied wildly. While direct skin application certainly occurred, emphasis was often placed on perfuming clothing, gloves, handkerchiefs, and even hair, ensuring a consistent, gentle emanation of scent rather than an overwhelming burst. It's like a meticulously composed piece of music with different notes and instruments playing their part to create a harmonious whole. You'd think of your scent as an extension of your presence, a silent language. The choice of fragrance itself was often deliberate, Heavy musks might be favored for evening wear, while lighter floral or citrus notes were deemed more appropriate for daytime engagements. You'd likely possess a small collection of scents, each for a different occasion or mood. Historians still argue whether the elaborate methods of perfume application in the Victorian era were primarily a compensatory measure for less frequent bathing in pervasive odors, or if they represented a true appreciation for the art of perfumery and the nuanced language of scent in social interaction. Was it a cover-up or an aesthetic statement? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some fashion guides of the era would advise women to place dried orange peels or fragrant herbs like lavender inside their corsets, believing the body's warmth would slowly release their aroma, creating a subtle natural perfume from within. You'd be laced into your tight undergarments, a secret potpourri tucked against your skin, subtly scenting your entire being. It's a rather intimate and surprisingly persistent way to wear a fragrance, isn't it? But for now, you just breathe deeply, confident that your fragrant aura speaks volumes about your refined sensibilities. As your chosen perfume subtly defines your presence, let's turn to a more disturbing yet undeniably influential aspect of Victorian beauty, the romanticization of illness. You are now stepping into the chilling world of the consumption look, where the gaunt, delicate appearance associated with tuberculosis became incredibly a morbidly fashionable ideal. Imagine observing the subtle signs of consumption, the era's pervasive and often fatal lung disease, and rather than recoiling, finding yourself drawn to its aesthetic. The pallor of the skin, the flush in the cheeks, the seemingly luminous eyes, the delicate, almost ethereal fragility. These were all symptoms of a devastating illness, yet they became a strange kind of beauty ideal. Mainstream historical facts confirm that tuberculosis, then called consumption, was rampant throughout the Victorian era, affecting all social classes and carrying a high mortality rate. However, paradoxically, the physical manifestations of the disease, its characteristic wasting away the translucent skin, revealing delicate blue veins, and the feverish flush were often depicted in art and literature as signs of heightened sensitivity, spiritual purity, and romantic melancholy. It's like today if people started trying to look like they had the flu. It's unsettling, isn't it? You'd see young women attempting to mimic this fragile appearance, perhaps with a perverse, subconscious acceptance of their own mortality. To achieve this consumptive chic, you might find yourself enhancing your natural pallor with even more powders, or perhaps even limiting your food intake to achieve a desirable thinness. Some would apply a touch of rouge to their cheeks to mimic the feverish flush, creating a stark contrast with their otherwise pale faces. Historians still argue whether this romanticization of consumption was a coping mechanism for a pervasive disease, an aesthetic expression of the era's melancholic sensibilities, or if it subtly encouraged unhealthy practices among those striving for the ideal. Was it a morbid fashion statement or a tragic reflection of a society grappling with widespread illness? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some fashion magazines of the era would even publish fictionalized accounts of consumptive heroines, further cementing the romantic ideal of the delicate fading beauty. You'd read these stories perhaps with a sigh, and then subtly dab a little more powder onto your own face, hoping to achieve that coveted, tragically beautiful fragility. It truly highlights the sometimes dark side of beauty ideals, doesn't it? With the haunting allure of the consumption look, casting a pale shadow over your beauty aspirations, let's turn to another significant and often uncomfortable layer of Victorian dress that shaped your figure, your undergarments. Beyond the well-known corset, there was a whole array of foundational pieces designed to mold and manipulate your body, often at the expense of genuine comfort. You are now exploring the realm of girdle ghoulishness, where other restrictive undergarments contributed to your daily discomfort and sculpted form. Imagine slipping into your morning attire, not just a corset, but perhaps a tight chemise, stiff petticoats, or even a bust improver that promised to push and lift. While the corset focused on the waist, other garments aimed to smooth the hips, flatten the stomach, or exaggerate the bust, creating a seamless, idealized silhouette beneath your fashionable gowns. Mainstream historical facts indicate that Victorian women wore multiple layers of undergarments, each serving a specific purpose in shaping the figure and providing modesty. These weren't merely functional. They were foundational to the era's aesthetic, creating the desired smooth lines and preventing the show of any unwelcome bulges. It's like building a meticulously crafted sculpture piece by laborious piece until the desired form emerges. You'd endure the chafing and the layers knowing that every undergarment contributed to your overall polished presentation. The materials themselves could add to the discomfort. Stiffened cotton, linen, and even horsehair were used to create volume and rigidity in petticoats and bustles, adding weight and warmth. While not as overtly dangerous as the chemical concoctions, the constant pressure and heat from these layers could lead to skin irritation, reduced circulation, and general feelings of constriction. Historians still argue whether the extensive layering and restrictive nature of Victorian undergarments significantly contributed to women's reported health issues, such as fainting spells and digestive problems, or if these were more attributable to tight lacing and other factors. Was it a foundation for elegance or a cage of discomfort? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some bust improvers were actually inflatable, requiring you to discreetly pump air into them to achieve the desired fullness. You'd be subtly squeezing a small rubber bulb beneath your dress, hoping no one noticed the faint hiss as your bosom magically expanded. It's a rather ingenious, if slightly ludicrous way to enhance your figure, isn't it? But for now, you just breathe a quiet sigh of relief as you finish fastening the last hook, ready to face the day in your perfectly molded form. With your silhouette expertly shaped by layers of undergarments, your attention might then turn to the most intimate and continuous beauty ritual of all, the nightly rejuvenation of your complexion. In an era without modern skincare science, the approach to overnight beauty often veered into the truly peculiar. You're now uncovering the bizarre practice of the beauty mask, where full facial coverings, often made of unlikely materials, promised miraculous results by morning. Imagine preparing for bed not just with a gentle cleansing, but with the application of a grotesque full-face mask. These weren't the soothing sheet masks of today. Instead, you might fashion a covering from thin slices of raw meat, believed to feed the skin and reduce wrinkles, or perhaps a thick paste of ground herbs, oats, and perhaps even some animal fats. You'd secure this concoction to your face, often with strips of cloth or a specially designed contraption, and then attempt to sleep through the night, a silent, mummified figure in your bedchamber. Mainstream historical facts reveal that while scientific understanding of skin biology was minimal, the desire for a youthful, blemish-free complexion was intense. Various beauty masks were promoted in popular manuals and through anecdotal evidence, often with the belief that prolonged contact with certain substances could draw out impurities or imbue the skin with revitalizing properties. It's like wrapping your face in leftovers from dinner, convinced it's going to make you glow. You'd endure the discomfort, the strange smells, and the sheer oddity of it all, dreaming of a pristine complexion by dawn. The efficacy or lack thereof of these masks was entirely secondary to the belief in their power. You might wake with a slightly softer skin texture, perhaps from the moisture, but certainly not the dramatic transformation promised. More often, you risked irritation-clogged pores or even bacterial infections from the unhygienic application of raw materials. Historians still argue whether the widespread use of these nightly masks was primarily a testament to desperate vanity, a reflection of limited scientific knowledge, or a form of self-care ritual that provided psychological comfort in a demanding era. Was it a genuine attempt at skincare, or just another bizarre facet of self-torture? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some masks involve placing individual strawberries or cucumber slices directly onto the face, held in place by netting or a sticky balm promising to whiten the skin and reduce puffiness. You'd be lying there, a fruit platter for a face, hoping no rogue berry slipped off and got into your nose while you slept. It definitely adds a whole new meaning to eating your greens, doesn't it? But for now, you just carefully adjust your strange nocturnal mask, eager for the morning's promised beauty. Having hopefully endured a night beneath a meter fruit mask, your attention inevitably turns to those delicate yet defining features, your eyebrows. In an era where expression and refinement were paramount, the shaping and enhancement of these facial frames led to some truly peculiar and sometimes rather grotesque methods. You are now delving into the intricate world of crown eyebrow embellishments. where materials like mouse fur and soot played an unexpected role. Imagine desiring a fuller, darker, or simply more defined eyebrow line. You wouldn't reach for a modern eyebrow pencil or microblading appointment. Instead, you might carefully collect discarded mouse fur, perhaps from a mouse trap, yes really, and meticulously glue tiny strips of it onto your natural brows. Or you might mix soot from a lamp with a bit of oil to create a dark makeshift pomade, carefully applying it with a fine brush. Mainstream historical facts indicate that while natural eyebrows were generally preferred, enhancement was common. For those with sparse or light brows, artificial additions were not unheard of, particularly as the century progressed and defined features became more fashionable. It's like using a tiny furry toupee for your face, isn't it? You'd take immense care hoping your new luxuriant brows looked utterly natural, not like something that scurried across the floor last night. The meticulousness required for such applications was considerable. Each tiny piece of fur had to be painstakingly aligned and the soot mixture applied with a steady hand to avoid smudging or creating an obvious painted-on look. Beyond these, some women would simply darken their existing brows with burnt cork or elderberry juice, offering a less dramatic but still noticeable enhancement. Historians still argue whether the extreme measures taken for eyebrow enhancement were primarily driven by a desire to conform to specific aesthetic ideals, or if they also served as a subtle form of personal expression in a society with many restrictions on female individuality. Was it vanity or a quiet artistic statement? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some fashionable ladies would even use a mixture of egg white and sugar to stiffen and shape their eyebrows, creating a sort of natural, albeit slightly sticky gel. You'd probably find yourself accidentally brushing your brows with your tongue, then immediately regretting it. But for now, you just admire your perfectly defined, perhaps surprisingly furry eyebrows, ready to convey every subtle emotion. With your eyebrows now meticulously crafted, whether with mouse fur or soot, your attention might shift to another subtle facial feature that when present was considered a mark of youthful charm, the dimple. For those not naturally blessed with these endearing indentations, the Victorian era offered some remarkably inventive, if slightly unsettling solutions. You're now learning about a dimple creation through both mechanical means and early daring attempts at surgery. Imagine desiring that playful indentation on your cheek, a small mark of innocence and vivacity. You wouldn't simply wish for it. Instead, you might acquire a small spring-loaded device, perhaps charmingly named a dimple machine or dimple maker. This contraption would consist of two small knobs or pads designed to press into your cheeks, held in place by wires that wrapped around your head. You'd wear this device for hours, perhaps even while sleeping, hoping that the sustained pressure would eventually create a permanent indentation in your flesh. Mainstream historical facts indicate that while less common than other beauty practices, the pursuit of dimples did exist, driven by a cultural appreciation for youthful features. These mechanical devices were marketed as simple, non-invasive ways to achieve a coveted aesthetic. It's like trying to carve a permanent groove into a piece of wood by just pressing on it repeatedly. You'd certainly hope for success, but the reality might be more akin to a temporary dent or just a sore cheek. You'd endure the discomfort, convinced that each hour brought you closer to that charming facial mark. Beyond mechanical solutions for the truly daring or desperate, there were whispers of early rudimentary attempts at surgical dimple creation. These would involve a physician making a small incision and perhaps removing a tiny piece of tissue or tying a suture to create the indentation, all without modern anesthetics or sterile environments. Historians still argue whether the pursuit of dimples through either mechanical devices or early surgical methods reflects a deeper Victorian anxiety about aging and the loss of youthful charm, or if it was simply another example of the era's relentless pursuit of physical perfection. Was it a harmless quirk or a troubling sign of body dissatisfaction? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some women would actually use a sharp object, like the blunt end of a knitting needle, to repeatedly press into their cheeks, hoping to manually create a dimple through sheer force of will and repetitive pressure. You'd be poking your face, feeling slightly ridiculous, but utterly determined to sculpt that perfect indentation. It truly puts a whole new spin on the phrase, making a good impression, doesn't it? But for now, you just smile, hoping your efforts have left their lasting, charming mark. Having contemplated the surgical creation of dimples, let's return to a more foundational, yet equally challenging aspect of personal presentation: the breath. In an era before widespread fluoridated water, modern dental hygiene, and accessible professional care, ensuring a fresh mouth was a daily struggle. You are now delving into the world of mesh, mouthwashes, and breath, where aromatic anxieties led to often unpalatable concoctions. Imagine preparing for polite conversation, acutely aware that an unpleasant breath could betray your social graces and even hint at underlying ill health. You wouldn't just grab a mint. Instead, you might gargle with a solution of diluted carbolic acid, yes, the disinfectant again, or perhaps a strong herbal infusion steeped from myrrh, sage, or even a dash of cayenne pepper. These were believed to kill germs, mask odors, and generally purify the mouth, though the sensation might be less than pleasant, leaving a bitter or stinging aftertaste. Mainstream historical facts confirm that, while oral hygiene practices were rudimentary, the concern for bad breath was very real. Various mouthwashes and elixirs were sold or concocted at home, reflecting a societal anxiety about halitosis, which was seen as both a social faux pas and a sign of poor constitution. It's like trying to put out a fire with a squirt gun. You're making an effort, but you're not really getting to the root of the problem. You'd rinse vigorously, hoping to eradicate any lingering odors from your latest meal or compromise dental health. Beyond the liquid remedies, some individuals would chew on fragrant herbs like parsley, mint, or even cloves, hoping to sweeten their breath through more natural means. For particularly stubborn issues, some might even resort to chewing on a piece of charcoal, believing its absorbent properties would draw out impurities and odors. Historians still argue whether the widespread use of harsh, often toxic mouthwashes contributed to long-term oral health problems for Victorians, or if they offered a necessary, albeit temporary, solution in an era where dental disease was rampant. Was it a genuine attempt at hygiene or a chemically risky quick fix? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some gentlemen's breath purifiers marketed during this period actually contained small amounts of chloroform or cocaine, promising not just fresh breath, but a subtle, intoxicating lift. You'd discreetly pop a lozenge into your mouth, perhaps feeling a strange, buzzing sensation, completely unaware you were self-medicating for social anxiety. It truly adds a new layer to charming conversation, doesn't it? But for now, you just breathe a cautious sigh of relief, hoping your breath is as sweet as your intentions. With your breath now hopefully fresh and aromatic, your meticulous attention to personal presentation moves to features often overlooked in modern routines: your ears and nose. While perhaps not as overtly glamorous as a pale complexion or a cinched waist, these features were nonetheless subject to subtle shaping and dedicated care in the Victorian pursuit of overall aesthetic perfection. You are now discovering the niche world of Bailey ear and nose aesthetics, sometimes involving peculiar instruments. Imagine scrutinizing your profile in a mirror, noticing perhaps a slightly prominent nose or ears that protruded more than was considered fashionable. For these concerns, you wouldn't necessarily seek out modern plastic surgery. Instead, you might acquire a small, seemingly innocuous device, a nose shaper or ear press. These contraptions, often made of bone, rubber, or metal, were designed to be worn discreetly, perhaps during sleep, or while at home, exerting gentle, continuous pressure to reshape cartilage over time. Mainstream historical facts confirm that, while not widely advertised, such devices existed and were used by individuals seeking to subtly alter their features to conform to prevailing ideals of delicate facial proportions. It's like trying to bend a twig into a specific shape by tying it down for weeks. The hope was that sustained pressure would lead to permanent alteration. You'd endure the slight discomfort, hoping that with diligent use, your features would gradually become more refined. Beyond reshaping cleanliness and perceived beauty of these features also involve specific routines. For ears, meticulous cleaning with special solutions or delicate instruments was common. For noses, some would apply pore reducers or blackhead removers that were often harsh, abrasive pastes. Historians still argue whether the use of such shaping devices had any lasting effect on cartilage, or if they primarily served as a psychological comfort for those anxious about their appearance, with any perceived changes being purely coincidental or temporary. Was it truly effective or just an elaborate placebo? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some beauty manuals of the era advised women to gently massage their noses with a cold, smooth stone for several minutes each day, believing this would refine its shape and reduce any puffiness. You'd be sitting there diligently rubbing your nose with a pebble, looking perhaps a little bit like you were trying to start a tiny Stone Age fire on your face. It's a rather committed form of self-sculpture, isn't it? But for now, you just hope your subtle efforts yield the desired delicate contours. With your ears and nose subtly attended to, let's turn our attention to the one beauty ritual that promises regeneration while you're completely oblivious. Beauty sleep. In the Victorian era, even the act of slumber wasn't entirely free from prescribed routines with specific sleeping positions and nightly applications believed to enhance your appearance by morning. Imagine preparing for bed not just to rest, but to actively participate in your beauty regimen. You might be advised to sleep on your back, preventing wrinkles from forming on your face, or perhaps with your head slightly elevated to reduce puffiness. Before drifting off, you might apply a specialized night cream or balm to your face, often a thick waxy concoction designed to deeply moisturize and feed the skin overnight. Mainstream historical facts indicate that the concept of beauty sleep is far from new, with various cultures throughout history believing in the rejuvenating power of rest. Victorian beauty manuals and health guides often offered advice on optimizing sleep for appearance, highlighting the importance of fresh air, proper ventilation, and specific nighttime applications. It's like charging your phone overnight. You're hoping it wakes up refreshed and ready for optimal performance. You drift off trusting that your slumber was actively working wonders for your complexion. Beyond creams, some women would even apply specific poultices or compresses to their faces overnight, similar to the full facial mask we discussed earlier, but perhaps more localized. These might be pads soaked in rose water for the eyes, or a compress of witch hazel applied to the forehead to tighten the skin. Historians still argue whether the Victorian emphasis on specific beauty sleep rituals had any discernible scientific effect on their appearance, or if the perceived benefits were primarily psychological, stemming from the belief that they were actively improving themselves. Was it genuine self-care, or merely another layer of self-delusion? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some fashionable ladies would meticulously arrange their hair in silk caps or nets overnight, not just to protect their elaborate hairstyles, but also to prevent tangles and breakages, ensuring their hair was still beautifully dressed even when they woke. You'd spend precious minutes pinning up your locks, looking a bit like a medieval knight preparing for battle, all for the sake of waking up with perfectly coiffed tresses. It really brings a whole new meaning to bedhead, doesn't it? But for now, you just close your eyes, confident that your sleep is working its silent, transformative magic. Having optimized your sleep for beauty, let's now consider a fascinating and often disturbing aspect of Victorian aesthetics: the surprising focus on the appearance of children. In an era where purity and innocence were highly prized, children were not exempt from the era's beauty standards, leading to some surprisingly early and sometimes harmful routines. You are now being introduced to child beauty and the sometimes dangerous regimens applied to the very young. Imagine a Victorian nursery, not just a place for play, but also for rudimentary beauty rituals. A mother or governess might meticulously brush a young girl's hair for an hour each day, not just for neatness, but to encourage length and luster, often applying scented oils or mild pomades. For boys, their hair might be carefully parted and combed, perhaps with a touch of brilliantine, for a neat, respectable appearance. Mainstream historical facts indicate that while children's clothing became less restrictive than adult attire, their appearance was still a reflection of family status and respectability. Pale complexions were desired for children as well, signifying they were not exposed to harsh outdoor labor. It's like dressing up a doll, but the doll is a living, breathing human who might not appreciate the constant primping. You'd see young children subjected to these routines, learning from an early age the importance of presenting a proper image. Beyond basic grooming, some practices veered into more questionable territory. For children with naturally darker skin, some desperate parents might apply mild bleaching agents to achieve a lighter complexion. For particularly unruly hair, Some might even resort to using light heat-based tools at a very young age, risking damage to delicate strands. Historians still argue whether the imposition of beauty routines on children in the Victorian era primarily served to instill discipline and social conformity, or if it contributed to early body image issues and health risks by exposing them to potentially harmful products and unrealistic ideals. Was it about proper upbringing or psychological conditioning? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some parents would tie specific ribbons or tight caps around infants' heads, believing it could subtly shape their skull or ear placement, aiming for a more aesthetically pleasing head shape as they grew. You'd imagine a tiny baby squirming uncomfortably, inadvertently participating in its own cosmetic molding. It certainly puts a new spin on infant care, doesn't it? But for now, you just observe the young ones already initiated into the often odd world of Victorian beauty. As you observe the meticulous routines applied even to Victorian children, let's turn to an aspect of appearance that paradoxically was dictated by profound sorrow. In an era deeply conscious of social etiquette and public presentation, the expression of grief was no exception, leading to highly codified and elaborate aesthetic demands. You are now examining mourning attire, and how even the deepest sorrow had its own rigid, defining beauty. Imagine the sudden, profound loss of a loved one. Your immediate instinct might be to retreat from the world, but Victorian society had precise expectations for how you would visually communicate your grief. For women, this meant a complete overhaul of your wardrobe into severe black, often made from dull, non-reflective fabrics like crepe. Jewelry would be restricted to jet or black onyx, and any hint of color was strictly forbidden, sometimes for years. Mainstream historical facts confirm that mourning rituals in the Victorian era, particularly after the death of Prince Albert, Queen Victoria's husband, became incredibly elaborate and strictly enforced. There were distinct stages of mourning, each with its own set of rules regarding attire, from full mourning to half mourning, gradually allowing for less severe colors like gray or lavender. It's like wearing a uniform for your grief, every detail conveying the depth and duration of your sorrow. You'd feel the heavy, often itchy fabric of your crepe dress, a constant physical reminder of your loss and your societal role. Beyond the garments themselves, personal grooming during deep mourning also adhered to strict guidelines. Hair would be pulled back severely, often hidden beneath black bonnets or caps. Makeup was completely eschewed, as a pale, unadorned face was seen as a sign of genuine sorrow, contrasting sharply with the ruched and powdered faces of everyday beauty. Historians still argue whether the elaborate and prolonged nature of Victorian mourning attire was primarily a sincere expression of grief, a form of public spectacle, or a societal mechanism that constrained women's lives and expressions, particularly widows. Was it about honoring the dead or controlling the living? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some Victorian women would actually collect hair from deceased loved ones and weave it into elaborate jewelry or wearable mourning keepsakes, often worn discreetly under their black attire. You'd be wearing a bracelet woven from the hair of your departed aunt, a macabre yet deeply sentimental connection to the deceased. It certainly adds a very literal, personal touch to grief, doesn't it? But for now, you just feel the quiet weight of your mourning clothes, a solemn beauty that speaks volumes without a single word. Beyond the somber demands of mourning attire, let's turn our attention to another foundational aspect of Victorian personal care: cleanliness itself. While we've discussed the prevalence of perfumes to mask odors, the act of bathing in the Victorian era was a surprisingly infrequent yet often elaborate ritual. You are now stepping into the world of bathing rituals, where cleanliness was a luxury and the process itself a significant undertaking. Imagine preparing for your weekly or perhaps even less frequent bath. This wasn't a quick shower or a casual dip. For many, especially those in urban homes without running water, water had to be heated on a stove and carried to a dedicated bathtub, often made of copper or tin, and placed in a bedroom or a separate bathing room. The sheer effort involved meant that full-body immersion was a special event, not a daily occurrence. Mainstream historical facts confirm that, while the importance of hygiene was gaining recognition throughout the Victorian period, daily bathing, as we know it, was largely uncommon, especially in the earlier decades. Instead, sponge baths or washes of visible body parts were more frequent. Public baths did exist primarily for the working classes, But private bathing for the middle and upper classes was a more involved, almost ceremonial process. It's like preparing for a mini spa day, but in your own bedroom with a lot more logistical effort. You'd approach this ritual with a sense of purposeful indulgence, a rare moment of full bodily attention. When a full bath was taken, it was often an elaborate affair. Special soaps, often scented with lavender or rose, would be used, and the water might be infused with fragrant essential oils or bath salts for a more luxurious experience. Ladies might even use specific brushes or sponges to stimulate circulation, believing it enhanced their complexion and overall health. Historians still argue whether the relatively infrequent full bathing practices of the Victorians contributed to the spread of various skin ailments and infections, or if the partial washes and reliance on perfumes largely mitigated these risks. Was it a pragmatic approach to limited resources or a genuine hygiene deficit? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some Victorian women would add small amounts of bran or oatmeal to their bathwater, believing it would soften the skin and soothe any irritations, effectively turning their bath into a giant bowl of porridge. You'd be soaking in a milky, slightly grainy concoction, feeling oddly nourished even if you emerge smelling faintly of breakfast. It certainly makes for a unique bathing experience, doesn't it? But for now, you just luxuriate in the warm scented water, a rare and cherished moment of Victorian cleanliness. Having indulged in your rare yet elaborate bathing ritual, let's turn our attention to another aspect of hairstyling that, while less overtly dangerous than lead dyes, certainly inflicted its own kind of daily damage: the relentless pursuit of textured locks. In an era where smooth, sleek hair was often less fashionable than voluminous waves, curls and frizz-intense heat was a common and often harsh tool. You are now learning about hair crimping and frizzing, and the heat and harm involved. Imagine preparing your hair for a fashionable evening out, desiring those tight, regular waves known as crimps, or a soft, voluminous halo of frizz around your face. You wouldn't reach for a modern curling iron with temperature control. Instead, you'd heat heavy metal tongs directly in the flame of a gas lamp or over a stove. You'd then carefully and quickly clamp sections of your hair between these scorching implements, listening for the faint sizzle and smelling the faint scent of singed hair. Mainstream historical facts confirm that crimping irons and frizzing tongs were widely used throughout the Victorian era to create the popular wavy and voluminous hairstyles that were often impossible to achieve naturally. The lack of temperature control meant that damage was almost inevitable, but the fashion dictated conformity. It's like trying to cook delicate pastry with a blowtorch. You might get the desired crust, but you're likely to burn it in the process. You'd wince at the heat, hoping for perfectly formed waves rather than burnt ends. The immediate result was indeed a beautifully textured coiffure full of body and fashionable waves. However, the repeated application of extreme heat, often without any protective products, led to significant hair damage. Your hair would become brittle, dry, and prone to breakage, developing split ends and a dull appearance over time. Historians still argue whether the widespread use of heat styling tools contributed significantly to the perceived fragility and thinness of some Victorian women's hair, or if this was more a result of poor nutrition and other harsh beauty practices. Was it the styling or the diet that left hair lackluster? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some women, in an attempt to achieve frizz without direct heat, would tightly braid small sections of their hair, then boil them in a pot of water for several minutes, hoping the steam and tension would create a permanent wave. You'd be cooking your hair, literally feeling slightly ridiculous, but utterly determined to achieve that fashionable wild look. It certainly adds a new dimension to hair boiling, doesn't it? But for now, you just breathe a sigh of relief as your hair cools, perfectly crimped and frizzing in all the right places. While much of our focus has been on the female form, Victorian gentlemen were certainly not immune to the era's personal care anxieties, particularly concerning their crowning glory, or rather the lack thereof, and the persistent annoyance of flakes. You are now delving into the unique challenges and often peculiar remedies associated with the male dandruff dilemma, and the lengths men would go to preserve their hair and scalp health. Imagine a distinguished gentleman, impeccably dressed, yet secretly plagued by an irritating visible snowfall on his dark frock coat. Dandruff, while not a life-threatening ailment, was a significant social embarrassment, signaling poor hygiene or even ill health. To combat this, he wouldn't reach for a modern anti-dandruff shampoo. Instead, he might vigorously rub his scalp with various hair tonics or scalp invigorators, often concoctions containing ingredients like quinine coal tar or even highly diluted carbolic acid, believing these would stimulate the scalp and banish flakes. Mainstream historical facts indicate that while cleanliness was certainly a growing concern, effective treatments for common ailments like dandruff were rudimentary. Patent medicines and home remedies abounded, promising cures for everything from hair loss to scalp irritation, often with little scientific basis. It's like trying to fix a leaky roof with a Band-Aid. It might seem like a solution, but it doesn't address the underlying issue. He'd apply these potent liquids, enduring the tingling or burning sensation, hoping for a clear, respectable appearance. Beyond topical applications, the razor itself played a role in managing male scalp and beard issues. For some, a close shave of the head was seen as a way to cleanse the scalp and encourage new healthy hair growth, a drastic measure against persistent dandruff or thinning hair. For beards and mustaches, meticulous brushing and washing with specialized soaps were crucial to prevent flakes from accumulating in the facial hair itself. Historians still argue whether the aggressive scalp treatments and shaving practices contributed to more widespread skin irritation or hair loss among Victorian men, or if they were merely symptomatic of a broader societal ignorance regarding dermatological health. Did their remedies cause more problems than they solved? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some Victorian gentlemen desperate to combat baldness and dandruff simultaneously would rub their scalps with spare grease. Goose fat, believing the animal fats would nourish the hair follicles and soothe the skin. You'd imagine a man meticulously applying rendered animal fat to his head, smelling faintly of a roast dinner, all for the sake of a healthy scalp. It truly makes you appreciate modern hair products, doesn't it? But for now, he just brushes his shoulders with a quiet sigh, hoping the flakes have vanished. You've explored the extraordinary, often dangerous lengths to which individuals went in the Victorian era to achieve their desired aesthetic, from the radical to the subtly bizarre. As our journey through these peculiar routines nears its end, one overarching theme becomes strikingly clear: the profound role of social class in shaping every aspect of beauty. You are now reflecting on beauty and social class, and the unseen yet ever-present divide that dictated who pursued what beauty. Imagine two women, one a lady of leisure, the other a working-class laundress. While both might aspire to beauty, their daily routines, the products they could access, and the very ideals they pursued were fundamentally different. The lady of leisure could afford arsenic wafers and radium creams, the time for elaborate daily coiffures, and the luxury of maintaining a sun-averse pallor. Her beauty was a testament to her wealth, her lack of physical labor, and her adherence to the highest social norms. Mainstream historical facts unequivocally demonstrate that beauty was a luxury and its pursuit often a costly endeavor. Expensive chemicals, elaborate devices, and the time required for meticulous application were simply out of reach for the majority of the population. The working-class woman exposed to sun and grime might aspire to a simple cleanliness, perhaps a home-brewed herbal rinse or a discreetly applied pinch of color, but the toxic extremes were largely the domain of the privileged. It's like comparing a custom-tailored gown to a factory-made dress. Both serve a purpose, but one clearly signifies status and access. You'd see this divide reflected in every aspect of their appearance, a silent yet powerful visual language. The natural look site, which we discussed earlier, was often the most expensive to achieve, requiring layers of costly products and professional services to create an illusion of effortless perfection. Conversely, a sun-kissed complexion or roughened hands, far from being a beauty ideal, were undeniable markers of manual labor and lower social standing. Historians still argue whether the stark differences in beauty routines across social classes merely reflected existing economic disparities, or if they actively served to reinforce and widen the divide, creating an almost insurmountable aesthetic barrier between the haves and the have-nots. Was beauty a consequence of class or a tool to maintain it? And for a truly quirky tidbit, some working-class women would resort to using highly alkaline laundry soap for their skin, believing its harsh cleansing power would achieve a desirable whiteness despite the significant irritation and dryness it caused. You'd imagine the stinging raw sensation, all for a fleeting attempt to mimic the pallor of their social superiors. It's a poignant reminder of the enduring human desire to elevate oneself even through discomfort and the most unusual of means. But for now, you just contemplate the profound unspoken narratives etched onto the faces and bodies of Victorian society, a testament to beauty's enduring, yet often cruel social currency. You've journeyed through the curious, captivating, and sometimes truly terrifying world of Victorian beauty, from the arsenic wafers that promised a luminous pallor to the leeches that offered a natural blush, and from the constricting corsets to the radium-infused creams. You've seen the extraordinary lengths to which people went in pursuit of an ideal. You've witnessed the blurring lines between medicine and vanity, the rise of powerful advertising, and the surprising counter-trends of a fuller figure. As the echoes of gaslit parlors and rustling silks begin to fade, let's allow the imagery to soften the sharp edges of history to blur into the gentle hum of the present moment. Remember that delicate, almost ghostly complexion achieved with substances that would make your modern self recoil, or those wide, captivating eyes dilated by a deadly nightshade. It's a testament, isn't it, to the timeless human desire for beauty, even when the path to it was shrouded in ignorance and danger. We can almost hear the faint whisper of those Victorian ladies, perhaps adjusting a stray hair or smoothing a poison cream, completely unaware of the future you inhabit, where sun protection is king and chemicals are scrutinized. You might even find yourself appreciating your own far safer nightly routine, a little less daring, but certainly more conducive to a long and healthy life. The lessons of their trials, however, still echo, reminding us to question, to understand, and to value genuine well-being above fleeting, manufactured perfection. The light outside your window is probably quite dim now, or perhaps you're simply enveloped in the quiet of your room. Let the last vestiges of these peculiar historical routines drift away. There's no need to hold on to the images of strange poultices or toxic tints. Instead, let your mind settle, finding peace in the present, a deep, calm breath. You are safe, warm, and ready to rest. Sweet dreams.